Hey, Dr. Robertson.
Hey, Dr. Mosley, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Looking forward to talking about a little bit of Italian wine. You know,
Yeah,
I got all the Hansen gestures down.
you got a big plate of spaghetti and you're ready to go.
Oh, it's amazing. Yes, it's a
Okay.
mother's recipe. It's amazing.
So this one's going to be pretty short, and it's not that there's not a lot of information. It's just I've kind of realized we're getting close to the end of the semester. I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna go short.
Well, that's the thing about this class is that every one of these subjects is very interesting, and it's easy to go down a rabbit hole and fill up, days and days worth of time. So
Yeah. So let's talk about some Italian wine.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so one of the things that I hope that the students have kind of figured out is that wine and grape making really has to do with the weather. And so like where it's cooler, you get white grapes. Where it's warmer, you get red grapes. And they have different kinds of flavor profiles and it just depends on really what the weather is like.
Yeah.
So Italy is down south, close to the Mediterranean. It's warm. So what they make are these full-bodied, intense red wines. That's what they're known for. Not that they don't make others, but this is the majority of when we talk about Italian wines, we're talking about reds for the most part. They don't do as much in the white wines. Now, with the French wines, I said they use something called AOC, which was the Appellation d'Origine Contrôlée. Now, that's because they speak French in France. That makes sense. In Italy, they speak Italian. So they don't have the AOC. They have the DOC, the Denominazione d'Origine Controllata. Pretty similar. Basically, this is the organization that controls where wine can come from.
Yeah.
So the thing that the DOC protects is the name. So I can't call my wine Chianti if it's not a DOC Chianti. They control that name. They control the source of the must. The must is another word for grape juice. So that's the wine before it becomes wine. And it protects the quality of the wine. And the idea is it's going to prevent fraud, and it's going to prevent unfair competition. This way, it's kind of a level playing field that everybody's working with the same rules.
Okay.
So the laws that the DOC govern cover the area of production. Well, I can only grow Chianti if it comes from Tuscany in this area. The type of soil. If you have clay soil and the wine type, the DOC says it's supposed to come from sandy soil, you can't grow a DOC wine there.
Huh.
The location of the vineyard, the type of grape you use, the techniques you use, how many grapes you can get per acre, how much juice you can get per ton of grapes, the minimum sugar levels, the minimum acidity levels, how it's made, how it's aged, all of those things are controlled by the DOC. So in Italian wines, it's very rigid. It's like they basically give you a recipe and a map and say you can grow grapes here and this is how you make it. And you don't get any flex in it. Italian wines cannot be chaptalized, which means they cannot have additional sugar added. If you see the term superior, that means it has higher alcohol. If you see the term classico, that means it comes from an original place of production. So like we talk about wines have to come from, if you see like Classico Chianti, this is a genuine Chianti from the Chianti growing region.
Yeah. It should be good.
Yeah. If you see the word Reserva, that means that it's aged in a barrel at the winery. And if you see the term DOCG on the bottle, that's Denominazione d'Origine Controllata e Garantita. That's the garantita is a guarantee. So what this is we are guaranteeing this is the highest quality wine made in Italy. So just like the AOC was the Appellation d'Origine Contrôlée was the best wine in France, the DOCG is the best wine in Italy. So again, if you don't know anything and you're shopping and you see a bottle of Italian wine that says DOCG on it, generally that means it's a high quality wine.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be kind of hard to get embarrassed by picking it out.
Yeah. So the DOCG, these are the higher quality ones. They have strict guidelines. To become a DOCG, you had to spend at least 5 years sort of like in training where you're just a DOC. Like you got to prove yourself.
Well, I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? You don't just become a master.
Right.
overnight.
You got to prove yourself.
Yeah.
You have to have multiple producers. Like you can't be the only one that makes a style of wine. You have to sell it in containers smaller than 5 liters.
What? We can't sell a magnum of it?
Yeah. And you can't, the big giant bottle or a keg or a barrel and it gets the state seal. So it gets a seal from the government saying, hey, this is a DOCG wine. This is pretty good. Or at least it's been made the right way at the right places by people who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
The DOCG requires one of my favorite words.
Oh?
It requires an organoleptic evaluation. You know what an organoleptic evaluation is?
Just based off of what's written after that, I'm going to guess that it's all about the sensory of the sight, smell, and taste.
An organoleptic evaluation means they taste it and smell it.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
So
they take a look.
Yeah, you're exactly right. They have a panel of judges. That's their job. They work for the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, who go around and make sure the wines are good.
Yeah.
It's
a pretty sweet gig if you like wine. So
yeah. They inspect it at harvest time. If there's a problem, they'll inspect it up twice. So like you give them one, it's like, hey, this is not DOCG quality. You can resubmit and try. If it doesn't pass, it gets labeled as vino di tavola, which is table wine. So if it doesn't pass, it gets labeled as the cheapest, most basic wine.
Oh.
So
it becomes $3 Chuck at that point.
Yeah. There's pressure.
It's good, but it's not the best.
Yeah, if you can't pass the test, we're going to give you the lowest level of certification.
I'm guessing there's a lot of pressure there, kind of like the people with the Michelin stars, where they're just like, before Judgment Day.
If like Michelin came to evaluate Sea Island, and well, you didn't get a 5-star, so we're going to give you a 1-star. We're going to rate you the same as the Motel 6 out by the interstate.
Oh man, yeah, that'd be a little brutal.
Yeah. So because of that, there are a lot of good Italian wines that just say, you know what, screw that. We're not going to even bother with the system. We're just going to sell it based off our reputation.
Well, and I mean, really, that's why you keep your quality standards high, is you build a reputation. So
like all the other wines, Italian wines can be named for a place, a generic name. They can be named for a type of grape, or they can be named for a producer. Like if someone is renowned for making it, they can call it. So like the Vino Nobile de Montepulciano is a generic because that's a place, but the Montepulciano d'Abruzzo is a type of grape. So again, lots of confusion. The place name and the grape name are the same, but they're not. It's the same word, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's confusing, but it's all on there for a reason. So that way somebody looking at the bottle can tell you definitively, yeah, it was made here, it was made with this grape. Because just because it's made in a certain place doesn't mean it uses a certain grape.
Right. So all these things are required for the wine to be what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So in Italy, there are over 2,000 winemakers.
Oof.
Not a very big country. There are 20 regions, 96 provinces. I am not going to bother teaching you guys about these. Okay. So, like I said, there are 2,000 labels, 20 regions, and 96 provinces. We're going to talk about 3 of them really quickly. So we're going to talk about Tuscany, Piedmont, and the Veneto.
Some solid choices.
Tuscany, these are red wines, and these are good red wines. These are, for lack of a better term, these are ballsy red wines.
Yeah.
These are
full body, full flavor. Yeah.
So these are wines that can age. Aging for 2 years in oak. So so this is a red wine in oak. If you see some that are called reservas, they can age for 25 years. So these reds from Tuscany, these are robust wines, for lack of a better name. So they're known for the Vino Nobile di Montepulciano. They're known for the Carmigiano. And one of the other things they're known for is, like I said, the rules of the DOCG are very strict, and the winemakers are doing it on reputation. Well, some of these Tuscan winemakers are like, you know what? These rules are old-fashioned, and we can use modern techniques. We can make varietal wines. We can make New World style wines. And, we're just going to make the best wines we can using the latest technology. And we're not going to go through the system. We're just going to sell it based on our reputation. And so these became known as the Super Tuscans. So there's a group of wines out there called Super Tuscans, which are New World style wines made in Italy. Okay. Other thing, what else is?
And he said Chianti. I mean, really, it just, the first thing that came to my head was, Sir Anthony Hopkins. So
of course, Hannibal
I was
Lecter.
like, I wonder how many of the students have actually even seen that movie.
What movie is it?
Silence of the Lambs.
So in Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter, the charismatic, super intelligent serial killer, explains that he killed a disrespectful census worker and ate his liver with fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Yeah.
Now, that is actually a pretty clever comment because the fava beans and the Chianti both contain chemicals which are known to suppress the action of psychoactive drugs. So if someone was being treated for mental illness, that would actually would kind of let their hidden personality emerge. So that is, apparently was a psychology joke.
How about that?
Yeah, I read that somewhere.
Deep dive on there. So Chianti, yes. Now that we're not talking about eating people's livers with fava beans.
Chianti. Chianti. This is when you go to an Italian restaurant. This is the wine you see. The bottles that are wrapped in the straw.
Yeah, you can see a picture of it on the bottom there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Chianti is. So Chianti Classico, that's the oldest stop, or the oldest original place, a historic district, where it comes from. If you get a Chianti Classico Reserva, this is one that must be aged for at least 2 years and 3 months. That represents about a fifth of all the Chianti production. And the grape they use is Sangiovese, and the Chianti can be made, the Chianti Classico Reserva can be up to 100% Sangiovese. It used to be that Chianti was considered to be I don't want to say a cheap wine, but it was like, you go to the Italian restaurant and they bring out the bottle and it's like, it's like nothing special. They've gotten better. Yeah. I like Chianti. I mean, but it's one of those things, like, this is a classic combination. Italian food and Chianti, they just marry.
Yeah.
They're made to go together. So Chianti, like I said, the Chianti Classico can be up to 100% Sangiovese. The regular Chianti, the lower, or the one that's not the Classico, is mostly Sangiovese, but can have other grapes blended in. Not too much, no more than 25%. And they use it by a method, or they make it with a method that's pretty interesting, called the Governo Toscano method. So, like I said, Italian wines, especially, they're known for the reds. The Tuscan reds are especially big and bold. and they're intense. So the reason they're intense is because of this method. So they take the grapes and they put them on straw mats and they put them out in the sun. So what happens to them?
Yeah, they pretty much become raisins.
Yeah, they shrivel up.
Yeah.
So that's how you make it more intense. You're removing all that water. They're drying them before they make the wine with them.
So then all the sugar, which, if you paid attention to the previous weeks, is going to be more prevalent.
Yeah, so you're getting a lot of sugar. You're getting a lot of you're concentrating all the flavor compounds. Now, the Italian style wines, even though there's a ton of sugar in there when they start, they take them and ferment them till they're dry. Right? They let the yeast eat all that sugar. Again, they're usually very bold, very relatively high in alcohol. The mats that they put the grapes on to dry them out are called fasci. And so this is where the straw wrapped around the Chianti bottle comes from. Those were the fasci that they dried the grapes on. And they just took them and used them to decorate the bottles.
Well, I mean, you got to upcycle something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next region is Piedmont.
Yeah.
So Piedmont is a little more modern in their methods than Tuscany, and they're a little bit lighter. Now, Piedmont is one of those areas, it's one of the most beautiful areas in the world. It's super expensive place. And so the wines tend to be expensive because everything there is expensive.
Makes sense.
They allow the wines to ferment with the skins. So the skins have tannin in them, and tannin is bitter. And so again, it brings out this intense drying sensation in your mouth. So they allow them to ferment with the skins on to 0 brix. And brix is the rating for the amount of sugar in it.
Yeah.
So they are allowed to ferment the skins. They're allowed to let the yeast sit on there until there is no sugar left. And then they allow the yeast to stay in there a little longer.
So that's a little bit higher alcohol content.
Yeah, there, so high alcohol, no sweetness at all. Right? These are bone dry wines. Now, because of this long contact time with the skins and no sugar, this is a really strong wine, but it needs to age. Because if you consumed it immediately, all that tannin, all that bitterness it'd be overwhelming.
Well, it's like that one we talked about with the French stuff, where it's like, yeah, we need to do something to this.
Yeah, so it's got to sit for a while.
Yeah. And
so the Piedmont wines tend to age. The main grapes from the Piedmont are Dolcetto, Barbera, and Nebbiolo. The best wines that come from the region are Barolo and Barbaresco. So again, if you get a Barolo, it's usually a very good wine.
Yeah.
This is what they're known for. It's kind of weird. They will grow different grapes on the same slope there. The Nebbiolo grape is used as a blending grape. This is one of those things that Piedmont's kind of known for. It has a lot of tannin. Like I said, tannin is, trying to explain the concept. Tannin is gives you a dry, weird, bitter flavor in your mouth. You're kind of new to the region, Matt, but have you ever noticed when you drive around and you drive over a river, the river is brown?
Yeah. Yeah. All the soot and settlement, right?
Well, that's actually from the oak leaf. It's from the oaks in the area. And it turns the water brown, and that's tannin. If you've ever bit into an acorn and it has that bitterness when you bite into it.
No, haven't tried that, but
if you do, that's tannin. So it's not a really pleasant flavor initially, but it allows the wines to age and it mellows out.
It's kind of like the pucker power of the wine.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things like somebody somewhere figured out, well, this tastes like garbage, but if we let it sit for 3 years, it's really good.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of the characteristics of this. Let's see. From the Piedmont, the Nebbiolo grapes are used as for blending. They can be aged like the Barolo wines. If it's called a reserve, it can age for 5 years. Some of them, go over 15 years. The Barbaresco aged for 4 years.
Hmm.
Veneto. These tend to be less expensive. The Veneto is another region in Italy. The grapes they use are Valpolicella, Bardolino, and Soave. They tend to be inexpensive wines, and they're not like the ones from Piedmont and Tuscany. They're famous for their ability to age. The ones from Veneto, kind of the opposite. These are summer wines that you drink when they're young, and you don't have to wait for them to age.
Yeah, this is the stuff that we talked about with the French wines, where they're just the farmers themselves are going to be drinking it, right? They're because you can drink it relatively quickly.
Well, they will, but these are just not wines that have to age.
Yeah,
it's not a table wine.
Doesn't take time, so it's probably that's why it's inexpensive. It's
not table wine, but it doesn't have to age.
Yeah, there's not 5 years waiting for it to get ready.
Right. The Soave, they do some they do some white wines. Soave has to be at least 10.5% alcohol, 11.5% if it's going to be labeled as superior, which means aged. It says classical on the label. That again means it was grown in a certain area, and it's fruity and it's light. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and it was important there, and this is especially if you're going to be serving this type of stuff, is that when it says best served within 3 years, really, I mean, you got to pay attention. Not all wine should age.
Like most wine doesn't get better over time.
Yeah,
it's gonna grow.
Yeah. So if you're going to be big into wine, it's important to kind of
understand.
Yeah, what should be drunk relatively sooner than later.
And this is one of the challenges of managing a good wine list in a restaurant. Is so you have this wide selection of wines. If I have one that doesn't move a lot, I do have to be cognizant of, well, in 2 years, 3 years, its quality is going to decrease. So at some point, I put that wine on sale and try and move it while it's still of good quality.
Yeah, yeah, because the last thing you want to do is end up serving a glass of vinegar.
Yeah. So Bardolino, another region or another wine from the Veneto. This is a light red wine. Again, 10.5% alcohol. 11.5% if it's superior and aged. It can be grown in specific areas, so it would be Classico. It doesn't, no more than 3 years old. Best served at about 55 degrees. So this is kind of interesting. This is a light red wine that's made to be served
chilled. That's
cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can dig it.
So last word I'll say about Italian wines is just that more so than France, they are moving towards the New World winemaking techniques and the use of varietals.
My ancestors would be so upset if I had any that were Italian.
Yeah.
No. But okay, I mean, why not? Yeah. This was great. Thank you. I can't wait to listen to what we learn next.
Oh, we're going to learn about wines from California. Well, we're going to learn about wines from the U.S.
Because if nothing else, we got the California grapes from this, so it's cool.
Sure.
All right.
Sure we do.
All right. Thank you all.